Welcome to the lecture on the history of the English language. It's our fifth lecture, and today we'll discuss the problems related to modern Germanic languages. We'll give brief characteristics to each of the Germanic languages. And before beginning speaking about Germanic, modern Germanic languages, let me introduce you to Gothic language, the only dead language in our classification, about which we are often speaking. The name of this language we are often referring at. The Gothic language had the following features. The first feature, three-member structure of the word, distinctly found in many forms of the changeable parts of speech. As we know, or we'll later discuss, Old English had four-member structure of the word. It means stem building elements were named as a separate part of word structure. But in Gothic language, this kind of division was archaic. We see here only three-member structure of the word, or word stem building element ceased to be a separate member structure of the word. Second feature, alteration of the vowel stems, stem building elements according to the to ablaut and in the paradigm of nouns. As you see, change of the stem building was used to form the plural forms or case meanings and other number meanings of the noun. This is one of the archaic features of Common Germanic and Proto-Indo-European was found in the Gothic language. Third feature, synthetic forms of the passive voice, medio-passive, was used in the Gothic language. As we know, in modern English, we know two forms of the passive voice. Active voice was formed synthetically. Passive voice form was formed analytically. And medio-passive is something between active and passive. In form, it is active, and in its meaning, it's passive. Therefore, it's called medio-passive. For example, if we say Tom opened the door, it is in the active voice. The door was opened by Tom. It's in the passive voice. And if we say the door opened, it's medial passive form. In the Gothic language, we find this form. Medial passive was very, how to say, often used forms. Next, dual number of the verb and personal pronouns. In Gothic languages, like all ancient languages, dual number of the verb was used. That is, forms like we too, I too, I and you. In singular, we and you together. For these forms, there were special forms of the pronouns and special forms of the verb, and they were used as separate grammatical forms. That is, the category of number had three members. Singularity, plurality, and duality. Singular number, plural number, and dual number. Fifth feature of the Gothic language is that there was a class of the reduplicating verbs, class 7 of strong verbs. It means reduplication or of uh, doubling of one syllable was used to form a grammatical category, to express a grammatical meaning of the word. For example, haben means to call. Habai da dedim means I called. Here, da is repeated two times. Habai da dedim. Now, a few words about the fate of the Gothic language. As we know, it was, as we have already mentioned, the Gothic language had an alphabet, and Gothic Bible survived to our days. The original of the uh, Gothic Bible, written by Wolfile, uh, we can find in the library of the University Uppsala in Sweden. Uh, and it was used, the Gothic language was used by the West Goths, Ostgoths, and others till the 10th century. And when at last the Goths ceased existing as a result of the merging with our other nations. And the last speaker in the Gothic language was found in the 16th century in Ankara by Dutch tradesman. No, not Ankara, in Istanbul, in Constantinople. In Istanbul, Busbek, his name was Busbek, met a person speaking in a language which he seemed to know. He came up to that person and asked him, "Excuse me, what language are you speaking?" And that man answered, "I'm speaking the Gothic language." And Busbek, a man of the 16th century, was puzzled. He knew that the Gothic language died out in the 10th century, and the man is speaking and using it in Constantinople, in Istanbul, in the 16th century. And he tried to know more about this fact, and he asked about him, about his community, about the people who used this. He said that man, God, that God said that he and his community lived in the Crimea, and they spoke this. They were Christians. They spoke the Gothic language. They knew. Uh, they had their Bible, and he asked him to pronounce some words. I mean, Busbek asked that Goth. And the Goths pronounced some sentences, how they used in the 16th century. When Busbek came back to the Netherlands, he found the course books on the uh, Gothic language and compared them, and he was simply shocked seeing that that was the language as died out in the 6 centuries before. In this way, uh, later the speakers of the Gothic language, later in the 17th century, they ceased using this language and began speaking the Tatar language, which is called Crimea, language of Crimean Tatars. See, and changed their religion too. They began confessing the Islam language, the religion. This was the end of the Gothic language and the name Goth, history of the civilization. Now, modern Germanic languages. Uh, and this time we'll speak about two groups, West Germanic and North Germanic languages. About living English, West Germanic language, English, German, Dutch, Frisian, Yiddish, and Afrikaans. And North Germanic language, Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, Icelandic, and Faroese. We'll speak in alphabetical order. It will be more comfortable for us to begin and to discuss. Afrikaans is the first language. Afrikaans is one of the 11 official languages spoken in the Republic of South Africa. Of course, to have 11 official languages in one country is not very comfortable, but the life here is in this way. The Afrikaans language developed from the 17th century Dutch. Its vocabulary contains three layers: and its grammar is of Dutch origin. Grammar is Dutch. Vocabulary contains three layers: Dutch, Malaysian, and native African words. You can ask why Malaysian. Uh, Malaysian element is one makes one third in the vocabulary of the Afrikaans. It's explained by the fact that the Malay people were brought to the Cape area in the 17th century as slaves because native people were taken to the North and South America as slaves. They spoke, those Malay people, the slaves, they spoke Dutch with the colonizers and the native African people, adding their own words from Malay. Uh, in such a situation, they developed a new language, which we now call Afrikaans. Uh, it is spoken by the yellow population of the Republic uh, from the point of view of their race. It is spoken by about 10 million people now. We said there were 11 languages. What is the second language? If one of them is African, other languages English, Dutch, and others are 8 languages, languages spoken by native Africans. Uh, White people speak here Dutch language. Yellow people speak here Afrikaans, and other people, black people, speak here the English language. English language is used as an official language, as one of the 11 official languages. Next is the Dutch language. Dutch is a Germanic language spoken in the Netherlands and in Belgium. One and the same language spoken in two countries, in the Netherlands and Belgium, are named with two names. Dutch in the Netherlands and Flemish in Belgium. They are one and the same language with some dialectal differences. The Dutch language developed from the Middle Dutch. In the 16th century, there was only the Dutch language. In the 17th century, there existed only Dutch language. And in the 18th century, we find the Dutch language and the Afrikaans. The Dutch language is spoken by 20 million people in Netherlands and in Belgium. Next language is the Faroese language. Faroese is a North Germanic language. It developed from West Norse. As we know, Old Norse uh, consisted of two types, West Norse and East Norse. West Norse gave rise to the development of Norwegian, Icelandic, Faroese language. From East Norse developed the Danish and Swedish languages. You see, that differs. All of these languages, all these nations call Old Norse as the older form of their language. Faroese spoken in the Faroe Islands by the 41,000 people. Some linguists refer it to as a dialect of the Norwegian language. Frisian. Frisian is a West Germanic language spoken in the Netherlands and Germany. It is one of the two official languages in the Netherlands. It developed from Old Frisian from 1300 to 1575. There is no exact data on the number of speakers in Frisian. Next language, Icelandic. It is a North Germanic language which developed from West Norse. Sometimes Old Icelandic, language spoken between 800 to 1500 of our era, is referred to as Old Norse. It is the language of sagas and eddas. It is said that many Icelandic readers can read the eddas and sagas without much difficulty. It shows how conservative the Icelandic language is. Uh, it is spoken by about 330,000 people. Next, Danish. Danish is a North Germanic language which developed from Middle Danish. It is the official language of Denmark. It is spoken by 6 million people. Now, English. New or Modern English is a West Germanic language which developed from Middle English. It is spoken in Australia, United Kingdom, United States, New Zealand, Canada, etc., as a native language. New English is characterized by the following features. First feature, a very large vocabulary. The latest data gives us the information that the 1,025,000 words were registered in the English language. 1,025,000 words. It's a very large vocabulary. No other language in the world can boast with such a large vocabulary. Next, non-phonetic spelling. Non-phonetic spelling. It means that there is no direct correspondence between writing and pronunciation. What is written is not pronounced in the same way. It's called non-phonetic spelling. Next feature, an almost all total lack of inflections. All inflections died out in the Old English and Middle English periods. We know only some of them. For example, S for third person singular form of verb, S for the plural forms of nouns, ing and ed. Namely, all inflections left from Middle English and Old English period. Next, the syntax, totally dependent on word order. Word order is the main thing depending the nature, the meaning of the sentence. It changes the meaning. That's very important. That's very interesting. Next, a very complicated periphrastic verb system. Periphrastic verb system has some synonyms. Some say that they are analytical forms of words. The combination of auxiliary verb and main verb give different forms to express different grammatical categories. For example, in English we know analytical or periphrastic form of expressing continuous aspect. For example, I'm coming, he's going. Perfective aspect, he has come, we have met the delegation, etc. Here, has come, have met are periphrastic forms. Also, periphrastic forms are used to form the passive voice forms, like the building was built last year. Was built here was auxiliary verb. Built is a notional verb in participle to form. This is a periphrastic verb form. Question is also questions are also formed by means of the periphrastic forms. Do you speak English? Do you speak periphrastic periphrastic verb series form? English is spoken by 361 million people as mother tongue, as Muttersprache, as the language spoken from the birth to the end, what they use when they are born, etc., etc. Next, the German language. German language. Don't mix with the name of the Germanic. Germanic is the name of the group. German is the name of one language. It's interesting to know that there are two languages bearing the name German. High German, in German Hochdeutsch, and Low German, in German Plattdeutsch. The language which is learned and taught in our republic as well as throughout the world is High German. It developed from Middle High German. It's spoken in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Luxembourg, and elsewhere. High German took part in the second consonant shift. 110 million people speak German as a mother tongue, Muttersprache. This Hochdeutsch, High German. Low German. Some say Low German is a dialect of the German language. It's not right, because Low German is not a dialect. It's a separate language. Uh, Low German developed from Middle Low German. It is not a dialect of High German. It's a separate language. It's spoken in the north of Germany and the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, this language is called Low Saxon. Low Saxon. Low German or Low Saxon is spoken by from 1.5 to 2 million people. To compare with 110 million and 1.5, 2 million, you can see what is what here. Next language is Swedish. Swedish is a North Germanic language spoken in Sweden and Finland. It developed from Old Swedish. 10 million speak Swedish as a mother tongue. Next, Norwegian. Norwegian is a high North Germanic language which developed from West Norse. It has two written norms, the Norsk and Bokmål. 6 million people speak Norwegian. It's of course difficult to have two literal norms of one language, and attempts are made to make one official literal norm out of these two norms, about which we'll discuss later. We'll speak about it. We'll give information about them later. Next language, Yiddish. Yiddish developed from Middle High German. Middle High German. Its vocabulary contains the following layers: German words, Romance words, Hebrew or Aramaic words, and Slavic words. Yiddish is spoken in Israel, the United States, Latin America, and Russia, and in Europe, other countries of Europe like Poland, Hungary. Uh, 20 million people speak Yiddish as a mother tongue, as the language. I think that's all for today. Thank you for your attention.